Halakha says that again, in regards to tzitzit, there are only certain tzitziyot, certain kinds of materials that are considered hayam midoraita. The opinions that hold that only wool and linen are the two kinds of begadim that are hayam midoraita. Other begadim, depends on what it is, some are hayam midrabanan and some may be totally patur. For example, it says a beged made out of leather, one piece of leather, and you made a tzitzit out of it or a talet. In such a case, it says the halakha is there is no mitzvah of tzitzit on such a case. And therefore you're not obligated to put on tzitziyot, any kind of strings on it. However, he says, if a person wants to put on tzitzit on such a beged, but it's not a hayuv on such a beged. If it's a beged made out of total leather, it's not obligated in the mitzvah of tzitzit. Another kind of beged he brings down, the beged made out of, let's say, nylon or plastic, begadim, synthetic threads, things like that. He says in such a case also, midoraita, there's no mitzvah doraita to put on tzitzit. However, midrabanan, anach mahmirim, umahmir on such a beged, that in case a person wants to put on such a beged, then he should put on tzitzit. However, again, if a person wants to be mekayem the mitzvah doraita should be mekuyam with the talet or with the tzitzit that's made out of wool. So, if a person uses talet made out of wool or made out of linen, halakha is that you could use strings that are made out of wool or linen. Depends on what kind of beged you're using. However, if you're using any other kinds of begadim, you take wool strings and you put it on those begadim, and you are mekayem the mitzvah, at least midrabanan. However, he brings down, a person should be careful not to do vice versa. That if a person has a beged made out of wool, and he has strings made out of linen, the halakha is that you're not allowed to put the strings of linen on the beged that's made out of wool, because that would be considered kilayim. Now, even though in the times of the Mikdash they did use kilayim in the tzitziyot, that's only because they had techelet, they had the blue strings. So in the times when you had blue strings, you were allowed to use wool and linen inside the beged of tzitzit. However, today where we don't have techelet anymore, or maybe some people claim they have techelet, but it's not 100%. In such a case, a person may not use wool and linen together, and therefore, if he has a wool beged, he has to be very careful to make sure to only use wool strings, which most strings today are wool. However, if a person has a beged made out of linen, the only strings that he can use for such a beged would be strings made out of linen, and he may not use the regular strings that are out there made out of wool.